Welcome to the fourth episode of the Vision Vixen Podcast. Today's guest is podcast host of Unlocked and 2FM radio presenter, Laura Fox. On this episode, we discuss her continual hustle to get where she is and to be unapologetically herself all the way through. If you're listening on audio, make sure you check us out on YouTube at the Vision Vixen. And also, if you're watching on video, you can check us out on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music. So Laura, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, darling?
I am great, Angela. I'm so happy that you finally fucking got off the pot and did this. Like, you're made for everything that you do. And I mean, you've hustled so hard in your life. You've met so many great people, myself included. But no, genuinely, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Laura. So if anyone's not aware, myself and Laura used to go dancing together years and years ago. And honestly, Laura, you actually inspired me to be confident in my dancing. But Laura now is an incredible 2FM presenter, and she also has her own podcast called Unlocked. So the thing about Laura that I've just loved is you have been relentless in your career from the very beginning, and I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of that. So where would you actually say your career in the public eye has started?
Oh, well, like, I've been a plague, but this would be going back to, I suppose, 2012. And I'd always, I mean, Angela, you know me since we were like 10. It's like, I mean, we loved the stage when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
I am relentlessly like annoying when I can't stop talking to people. And I always wanted to get into presenting, TV presenting, radio presenting, anything really that I possibly could. And I, back in 2013, won Miss Galway, and then I suppose fucking Miss Galway.
I was so proud.
I was the most unprepared Miss Galway in the whole entire world. I didn't mean to enter Miss Galway, if that made sense. Like, not that I didn't mean to. Someone had said to me, you know, you're really good at it. Like, why don't you go for it and try? And I said, oh yeah, cool. I was so unprepared. I gave all of the girls heart attacks, like all my friends, because they were like, what do you mean you haven't collected the dress yet? It's 2:00. You have to be there at 4:30. Do you know it fits? And I was like, it'll fit. It'll be fine. It'll be grand. But I think that played to my strengths. And I genuinely think, and that's why when people contact me now to say, oh, what advice would you give me? And I'm genuinely saying, be yourself. Because I'm on the night when we did the interviews and all that, I'd had like 1 or 2 drinks beforehand, because, you know, you need to settle the nerves a little bit. And then I got up and I just had a giggle, and I kind of forgot about the, you know, the prim and proper Miss Galway side of things. And that really did play to my strength, that I ended up winning it. So from that, then I obviously did the whole Miss Ireland buzz, and then I went in and I seen that there was a girl who was Miss Sunday World that year. And I set my sights on that, because my whole thing was, at the time I was going in to study journalism and I needed an in a paper. And I thought, what better way to get yourself introduced to the heads of the papers and the people for the magazine that you need to be talking to than representing them for a full year. So I set my sights on Sunday World. I went and I won that, and out of that it was fantastic, because I've done so much with the Sunday World. Like, they gave me the chance to write articles for the magazine. They sent me on loads of press trips, and I really just took as much as I could from it. But going back to basically what your question is, like, how did I decide that I wanted to get into all of this? I used those platforms to try and, I suppose, rocket myself into radio. And I seen that there was an opening in Galway Bay FM, and God, I went in and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I faked it, as everybody should. Fake it till you make it. So I went on about 3 more months and nothing happened, and I was really sullen. I didn't know what to do. It's a very hard industry to get into, because it's not like it's advertised every week in the papers that there's a job going in X place. They scout for talent. So you kind of have to make yourself known. So I got onto them again, and I was just very much started flaunting the fact of, you know, like, oh, I've done X, Y, Z, like, because at the time when I was Miss Galway and Sunday World, I had done a lot of video stuff for both of them. So I started sending on all that stuff. And then eventually they got back to me. It was me and one other person, and they said, oh, you've got the job. Like, we'll take you on for a 6-month internship.
Okay.
And then I get this phone call and it's like, listen, Molly can't come in tomorrow morning. We need you to cover breakfast. That day I was put under so much pressure and I just had to get it right. And you did. And I went from that. So I kind of did that for a couple of months. I was getting cover work here and there. And then it was kind of coming down to the wire of like, okay, well, where do I want to go here? You can't stay covering here forever. And I had to make that decision. I could have stayed in Galway and I could have pushed and got myself my own show. And I know that sounds very like up myself, but it's not. I put the work in and I work very hard behind the scenes to make sure that the show is tailored to the audience. But then I had to look at myself and go, okay, I'm actually only 24 and I'm not ready for this yet. I wanted 2FM. And when I say it was tunnel vision for me, no other radio station would do. I needed to hit the top. And then I kind of thought, if I hit the top, coming back down again for regional stations with lower listenership would be fantastic for me because I've already got this out of my system. So I just left and moved to Dublin. And that was the most terrifying time of my life. And I had to start from scratch. And I started in Dublin and I was a nobody. And when I say nobody, I was less than a nobody. No one knew who I was. And as well, I had all these contacts in Galway because I obviously knew so many Galway people, but I knew nobody in Dublin. Fine. But I met this guy and we started talking and we just got talking about radio. And his name is Richie. And he said to me, you need to get yourself into Pulse. He was like, it's the digital broadcaster for RT. And I was like, how do I go about that? So he gave me an email and he goes, just email this guy and email him your show reel and just say like, I want in whatever. And this is at a time as well when Pulse wasn't paid. So like when you got into Pulse at the very beginning, it was free work. So I emailed and I heard nothing back. And then I emailed him every single week for 6 weeks, just with new bits that I was doing all the time. And I played them because my opinion of it was, and this is what advice I would give to everybody, is that eventually they'll have to email you back and either tell you to fuck off or they'll email you back and say, oh yeah, okay, come on in. So I was taking that gamble. I was going to be that plague. So I stayed emailing and then eventually they got back to me and said, yeah, listen, can you come in and we'll have a little chat? And I said, yeah, cool. Come in, had a little chat with them and they basically gave me my own like slot 2 weeks later. And I was like, this is unbelievable. But it was a hard graft to get myself in that position. And then you have to remember, I'm not making any money there. So I had to get creative. And Angela, you as well, I always have to thank you so much because you gave me such a massive dig out. Myself and Anya, my pal, we set up a video production company. Yeah, so we did that together. So I was trying to make money on the side by doing that, but without compromising the radio side
everything
of things.
else, yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. So my good friend Alan McQuillan, he was the guy who trained me in RT Pulse, and I really wanted to get across to 2FM. He had said to me, okay, I think you're ready. We're going to go to the head of 2FM, but you have to play this really well. I made a demo and I'll put the demo into his folder. I had to loiter pretty much around 2FM and try and catch him. So we walked around RT, like RT's huge. We went over to TV hoping to bump into him in the canteens. We were like just checking out different outlets. And eventually the day after, where we were walking around the corner and Al just pushed me and goes, like, pushed me back around the corner, held me and goes, this is our chance. And literally a week later, I had an email asking me would I cover the entertainment news. And I will never forget, I couldn't have ever done it without it. Okay, so that was 2 years ago that I got my first show cover on RT, and I have been hustling like a motherfucker, taking every single shift that I can get, every on-air thing. I'm pitching left, right and center for segments, for shows. And that's why I'm like splashed across all the different shows doing different things. And I'm hustling then. I'm sending like my boss all these new ideas for like new show concepts that I have and all that. But it's hard work. And don't get me wrong, on-air is it's the most enjoyable experience ever. Like I can't explain to you the buzz of live radio. And a 3-hour show, like afterwards you were drained, like you were absolutely wiped. But while you're doing it, it's like you're buzzing to the tunes while it's happening. You're having a great time with all of like the people who are texting in. You've got all your stories that you're going through. And I find it really interesting as well when you do deliver news and people respond to it. And and it's that nice feeling when you're kind of going, oh my God, okay, so you didn't know that. That's really nice. That's really nice to hear. But like, it's tough work. It's tough work, especially the point of where I'm at right now. I would have thought I'd been a whole lot further on, if that makes sense. I would have thought by now that I would have my own show and I'd be, steady. whereas I'm not. I'm still living pretty much paycheck to paycheck, and I don't know 1 month if I'm going to have like a month's work or if I'm not going to work that month.
Laura, you just said some like really, really incredible things. One of the things you said was, I absolutely loved how you said on, was it the first breakfast show you did, and you hadn't a clue of how you're going into it, or you didn't have a clue about how to do the Miss Galway. I think that is just like so key for people that want to, you know, whether it's be a presenter or be in business or start something new. I think that a lot of us will be like, well, I'm not qualified, or I don't know how to do it, or why me, or, you know, who'd listen to me? Why should I do that? There's loads of other people more qualified. But I think just having the edge and the drive and the passion to do it, and then just throwing yourself in the deep end, like they did, and like your friend Alan was saying, look, I have to leave the room in the radio show because otherwise you won't learn. So I love that, and I think that's so incredible. And also, I just also love how, you know, you've just been relentless, and you're still constantly giving your show reels and trying to hustle and get out there. So what would you say, advice would you give to somebody who's starting out, who would look at you or look at other people in that industry and are like, oh God, like, well, they're also ahead of me?
Never think like that, because you don't realize as well that, especially for this industry, for media, for radio, television, print, even, like, I mean, it's still going strong because they still have all their online stuff. They're constantly looking for new ideas and fresh perspectives. And like, you forget that sometimes, that you might have an idea that could be so fab that someone who is sitting looking at something for so long mightn't have thought of, and that could be your break. But if you want to get into radio, my best piece of advice is get your local radio station, get involved with them. Like, and I know you might be thinking like, oh, you know, I don't want to do my local radio station, but they're the guys who will give you the shots and they'll give you the breaks. And they're the ones who will encourage you to make the mistakes when you make them. So pitch them concepts of how to make their station more vibrant and have a voice that is on social media, because you've gone are the days now where linear media is all you need. Like, you can't just excel in print media, you can't excel on television, you can't excel on radio. Like, anything that we do on radio, like plan wise, will always have a social plan attached to it, because there's no point in doing it on the radio if you're not going to have a social aspect of it. So do you know what I mean? They're making everything connect. So it drives the listener onto your social, but it drives your social onto the radio, and that's where we need. Yeah, everyone's on social, but like, you need to kind of encourage people to turn the radio back on again and listen in the background. So if you just think of stuff like that, go to wherever your local radio station is, even if it's the likes of like Galway Bay FM. And I mean, it's very easy to find the heads of any of these stations. Like, their email addresses are floating around anywhere, and be relentless with them. And don't think you've got to package up all these ideas really like stunningly and they have to be polished. Like, send off a rough draft and just shoot your shot and say like, listen, I know your shit though as well. There's nothing that bugs me as much as someone who gets in contact and they've no idea what's happening on air. They've just decided now that they want to be a radio presenter, and they want your slot. Like, I get people obviously in touch with me, and I'm quite happy to help anybody. But when you don't know your shit and you've no idea what's happening on the actual radio station, that's when it pisses me off.
Of course, yeah.
Your passion isn't actually in that now. You've just decided you want the like, and quotation marks, fame, or the catapult of having your voice heard. But if you don't know the research behind it, then it's not worth it. So put your research in. Whatever place that you're getting in contact with, listen to them for a week. Make some notes of each of the shows that are going on, and come back to them with ideas of how, maybe don't critique them straight off the bat, but maybe come with ideas of how you could enhance them. And how you could enhance them from a social aspect, or how you could enhance them from a contributor's point of view. Getting in on any station as a contributor is fab, because it will give you like experience with them. It will give you like them experience with you, and they'll call you back for more things. So I don't know, like, there's Sean Moncrief used to do a thing called movies and booze, or my God, why can't I think of it? I think that's what it is anyway. Basically, he just review music or review movies. But you could get onto them and be like, I will give you your audience breakdown of the top 10 trends that are happening
Okay.
online this week, the top 10 stories. You
Mm-hmm.
could do like your pop culture review. Whatever it is that you know that you're very good at, get onto them and don't be afraid to just shoot your shot. And
Yeah.
like no more than like what I did, where I was relentless. They will
Mm-hmm.
have to get back to you at some point,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's just to be like, we've nothing at the minute. If they've nothing at the minute, go, cool, no problem at all. You know where I am. Come back to me at X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a phone these days. Like everybody has access to recording something. Listen to a segment that like you want to pitch for, or be it a demo for like a radio show or whatever it is, and just record yourself like a 2-3 minute segment. They know what your voice sounds like as well, and
Mm-hmm.
send it alongside it, or do it as a video. But just you have to just grab the bull by the horns and just go for it, because you won't get a chance otherwise.
No, I love that. And I love that with is coming to whether it's a role that you want to work in, or even if it's in your own business, how important the social media side of it is. Do you feel that your social media has had an impact on the roles that you've taken?
Yes, both positively and negatively. So I think I'm a bit too unapologetically myself sometimes.
I love it.
And
I think you're fantastic. I think you're unreal.
but I have no filter, and I'm not able to, while I'm able to bullshit, I feel like for years and years and years of my younger life, I tried to be something that I absolutely wasn't. And I tried to be that, like that influencer hun, or that like, oh, that prim and
Commercial.
proper, yeah, pageant person. And that's just not me.
Mhm.
I'm rough and ready. I like a bit of crack. Like, I like nice things as well, but I'm equally happy like just in the squalors.
Mhm.
Like, so I think that for me, social media has been, it's been a mind-boggling field, because I've been very much like, okay, shit, I know I need my social media to get up, but I don't know how to go about it without just being myself while I'm on it.
Mhm.
And I think, and as well, over lockdown, I think people have a different perspective on everything, and I think that's come to my advantage a little bit, in the sense that people are just quite happy to watch my nonsense, and me like having a shit day but not really moaning about it, just being like, oh, it's so shit.
No, Laura, I wanted to say you actually give so much value with you being yourself and you being vulnerable. I remember during the first lockdown, I was really struggling to relax and I was struggling to work. I was feeling so stressed out. I'm like, oh, I need to achieve this. I need to do this, this, this. And I was getting nothing done, staring at like my laptop or staring at the TV and not actually taking anything in. And then you came on your Instagram story. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to have a lazy day and I'm going to own this lazy day. I'm going to enjoy my TV programs. I'm going to enjoy this. And ever since then, that has just been such a powerful tool for me, because now it's like when I'm going to have a day off, I'm actually going to own it, like Laura says, and relax. And then the next day I'll wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. So
I'm
thank you for that.
so happy that you do that, because you work so hard. You work harder than anyone I know. So you of all people should be just putting your feet up and being like, I own this. I own this day. I'm going to have this day. But the reason that happened to me was because I was out of contract with 2FM in March. So the end of March was when my contract was coming up. And I always knew that was happening, but I had a completely different game plan for 2020 than what
We
2020
all
happened
did,
to
I
me.
think.
Yeah. So I was fine with that. I was going to be able to come back in on a contributor's role, but I had full-time work coming up. I was doing junket tours, so I was hosting all these live shows up and down the country, and I had loads of stuff coming up with them. I had MC gigs, I was DJing gigs at festivals. Like I had so much work.
Amazing.
2020 was my fucking year, and then 2020 happened. But I remember that, and don't get me wrong, like I absolutely adore 2FM. They did everything in their power to help me out and to get me sorted. But there was a good 6 weeks of in between contracts, because obviously it's not just as simple as saying, yeah, we're going to give Laura a contract.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole committee that it has to go through and has to be signed off, and it has to go to HR, and then it takes a couple of weeks to get everything over the line. So I was freaking at the start of this, because no more than you, and no more than probably the listener here, or anybody around the country, around the fucking world. I had no idea what was coming up and what the unknown was. And I really had just felt, I suppose it was a breaking point for me back in March, because I felt that I had worked so hard. Like I put like 6-7 years into getting to this point where I was set and I had consistent work and I knew what my work schedule was for the entire year. And I've never been able to say that before. And I was, for the first time in my life, being like, I'm going to be okay, like for money. I'm going to be okay for like work. I'm going to be okay for my head. Everything is going to be fine. And this is going to be it. And the fucking wool just got pulled over my eyes. And I was so stressed out and I was bawling my eyes out crying. And it was like that for about 2 days where I was just inconsolable. And then I just went, okay, my job's going to come back. And so will everybody else's job. There's nothing I can do right now this second, because I can't be hounding the station for work right now. And I can't be hounding them to get that contract over the line, because I know that it's not going to get over the line any quicker. And I know I'm going to be a pain in their hole by doing it. So instead, I just went, I'm not going to get this time back again. So I'm just going to enjoy it. And it was as simple as that. It was that light switch moment where I kind of went, actually, no, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I'm going to watch 10 seasons in a row, and you're not going to stop me because they're an hour each. Yes. But it was that. And I actually found it helped me so much by consciously going, oh, I'm going to not get out of bed today and I'm going to watch TV, but owning it instead of that fucking feeling in the back of your head of anxiety, and it's on your chest where you're going, I need to be doing something else. I need to be doing something else. I need to be doing something else. And you're not enjoying either experience at the minute. You're not enjoying what's on the TV. You're kind of mindlessly looking at your phone because you're like, okay, who will I contact next? And you're trying to think of stuff that you should be at. So I suppose I just like really enjoyed that time. And that's the best thing that I've taken out of lockdown, is that I've got a routine now. So even the days that I'm not working, I get up every single morning, I do my gym routine, I bring the dog out for a walk, I have my breakfast, I shower, and then I'll sit down and watch like 2 episodes of whatever my TV show is, and then I'll go out for a walk. But it's the fact that I know that I'm doing these things that I'm good with it. And I'm really happy that like you just sit down now and go, yeah, I'm just going to sit down here. I'm going to eat this. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to watch my TV show. I'm going to enjoy that. Because I think that that's one thing that people have to learn how to do. And it's that hustle mentality. It's this whole industry. It's that like, it's when you don't have a 9 to 5 and you don't have an employer, let's say, like a straight-edged employer who is going to be giving you cash every single week, it's a lot harder to be able to relax because you've got bills to pay. And you have to be inventive about the way you get cash in. And you can't just sit back and let it happen, but then you forget to chill out sometimes, and you forget to take those days off, and those days run into months and years, and then you're looking being like, why am I so stressed? Like, why am I so stressed about everything that's happening?
So with you then, Laura, like it's just been a continual like hustle to get where you are, and obviously that must have been like really devastating in March when all that kind of went downhill for you. But during your time, what do you think has kept you going? What has been the driving force that's kept you? No, I'm going to continue. I'm going to get this.
My driving force, I have to say, obviously, like I think I believe in myself a bit too much. But I think I would have given up 4 years ago easily. I was ready to cut it in. If I hadn't a gig by Christmas, that was it. I was gone. I was going to go back into doing sales. Like maybe go back to college and do something. And it's been Brian. Brian has been the driving force of, no, Foxy, you've got this, and you can't sit back because you will be a waste. And I can't explain the support that he's been to me unconditionally. He's never looked for anything back off me, ever. And he has just been a constant, I suppose, when I don't really have a constant. He's just been a rock throughout absolutely everything. And he is, honest to God, my biggest supporter. And like, he'll turn around and be like, no, it's all you, like, stop, like, what do you do? But I do have to give him the credit that, I mean, and especially because I was on a really, really, really hard place about 3.5 years ago, where I was working 2 jobs that didn't pay me. I was working purely for experience, something that grinds my gears. If it's something I could get rid of in the morning, it's unpaid internships, because I'm sorry, but your experience is not going to pay my bloody bills. And a lot of companies, and a lot of companies will exploit. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of companies that do a paid internship that will cover like your basic needs, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's all anybody's asking for. You're just
Yeah.
asking for your bus fare to be covered, your food to be covered.
Exactly.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that you can like go out
Yeah.
maybe once a month, but be able to afford your rent. And that's all anybody would ever want. So I was in a really bad place where I had to work these jobs to get exposure, but couldn't make any money because I was working so many hours in all these jobs. And he supported me financially and mentally the entire way through it. And he just keeps saying, he was like, when you hit that 100K, he's like, you hit that 100K, I'm getting a Range Rover. And I'm like, absolute fucking lootly, you were totally getting a Range Rover. We've been lucky that it's come back around and that I've managed to get like constant work coming in, and that we're okay now. But like, he never ever threw that in my face or let it get in between us. I did. I had meltdowns. I remember being at a bar one night and looking, and I had a fiver left, like €5. And he was like, "Mom, we get another drink." And I was like, "No, I'm fine. I just want to go home." Me, like, I never want to go home. And he was like, "No, like, Foxy, come on. Like, we're getting Jaeger bombs. Like, I'm buying another round of drinks."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I want to go." Like,
Yeah.
let me go home. And I went home and I bawled my eyes out because I couldn't keep
Mm-hmm.
it anymore. And he was just like, "You got to stop stressing about this. Like, you know, we're in this for the long run. This is not something that, like, stop counting up all the pennies that you're owing me for absolutely everything because you're getting stressed." He was like, "It will come a turn where you will be okay." And it has come a turn where I was okay for money, so I was able to cover us for rent, or I was able to cover all of our shopping, and
Mm-hmm.
it'd be okay. But we're in a really, really good place. But he never once stopped believing in me. And he'd always just go, "No, you got this." And even this year, Angela, like, I turned around again and it was that kind of like push or shove of, okay, if I don't get X by X time, like, that's it. I can't spend the rest of my life chasing this. And that is a reality that I do have to, like, I can't live in La La Land forever, and I can't think like it will be totally fine. I now have more options for work in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like this industry and avenues that I want to go and business routes that I want to go down myself. But the soul thing will always be on air work for me. I think I feel like I need to get my own show and have a good slot and have a good time and
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy it. And it's a short lifespan on radio as well. So like, you get your show, your max time. The legacy years are gone now. I mean, you're looking at 5 years maximum, and then you're out the gap again. So I need to be prepared for all of that and have my contingencies. But he's just not letting me like let it go anytime
That's
soon.
incredible.
He's like, "No, you got this. Absolutely, you have this."
That is amazing. I think he seems like such an incredible support, and also the support, like you said, from your friend Alan. Yeah, so I think in a lot of businesses or people out just doing their thing, I think the support is just really important, and it just shows with you guys. Like, I had no idea that you were gonna throw in the towel while we were thinking about it.
Yeah, and I would have. I absolutely would have had it not been for Brian. And I had to be realistic as well, because like, I couldn't live off fresh air, and
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make money. And this job requires a lot of time to be put into it. Fair enough. You look at the radio show and you go, okay, that's 3 hours on the air of live. But what you don't see is the like pre and post prep before that. If I'm going live at 9, I am up from 6 o'clock that morning, and I am researching everything that goes into those 3 hours, like bit by bit, link by link. I know exactly how many minutes I need to speak for overall. And then I come off the air and you've got to digest, and you've got to like go through everything after that. And if you're on for a week, then you've got to go through and do it all again and again and again. And you miss that part of it, and you miss that there's a lot that goes into the behind the scenes. You don't just rock up and walk in
Yeah,
and
of
and
course.
open a phaser and go, "Oh, hey guys." And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of ad lib as well. And that took me a while to learn too, that everything didn't have to be structured and staged.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was also a big thing that happened to me in like my whole life, when I decided, especially on social media, that I wasn't going to do the bullshit of like, "Oh,
Hi
hi
guys.
guys, hi, how are you?" Because that's just not me. That
No.
works for
Mm-hmm.
some people. Don't get me wrong, I follow loads of people who do that, and I enjoy watching them because it's authentic to them,
Them,
and
of
and
course.
they're able to do that, and that's their reality in their life, and I
Mm-hmm.
respect them completely for it. But that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that by just owning it and owning me on air, and
Mm-hmm.
just being able to not be afraid of the mic, and not be afraid of the fact that, okay, there's 100,000 people listening to this segment.
Yeah.
That when you give a bit more of yourself and you're a bit more relatable and you are exactly who you are. You are a girl from Galway, from a small town, who has a big family, who has loads of crack, who's been on a farm, who isn't afraid of like picking up shit. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
you're not trying to be this elusive character who
No.
has a South Dublin accent and is like, oh my god, guys, not me.
Yes. Well, that's the one thing that I loved about you, Laura, because since day one that I met you, I used to always admire how witty you were. Like you were so witty. You could talk to anybody. And watching your growth and watching you progress throughout the years and all the things that you've achieved, you have still like you're the exact same. You're still as down to earth. We mightn't talk for like year, 2 years, and then we're like, hi Angela, what's a crack? Everything is so normal. So I absolutely love that. And I do feel like that's such a credit to you. And I think that's why you've gotten so far. But just on that, like if you could go back to you starting to the career and you know what you know now, what advice would you give yourself if there is any?
I think that I would be a lot more savvy in terms of being online. I because I think that when I started out all of this, I was kind of too afraid to put a lot of myself online, and I turned down a lot of photo shoots and stuff that I should have been saying yes, yes, yes to the whole time. There's a completely different backstory to all of that, but I think going back now, I will be a lot more savvy online, not because I want to be an influencer, but because you have to play the game and you have to look at everything that's going on right now. You're looking at a dying medium of like radio, television, and print. It's inevitable. They're trying to obviously reinvent them and bring them back up again. But you are looking at, you're constantly fighting on the radio for people who are spending their time on Spotify or TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
You are fighting on television for people who are spending their time on YouTube, and for print media, I mean, you can see it all online. So why would you
Mm-hmm.
pay for a paper, and why would you have the waste of paper in your house? That kind of stuff. So I think that I would have been a lot more savvy online, maybe have been just more unapologetically myself and been more consistent with content so that I could have got a followership, which would have stood to me a whole lot more going into big stations and big places to say, well, I've got this following. So, I've got this platform to push out all the radio nonsense that we're doing across my own one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. Like, it is very hard. You can say that I'm in a position now where 10 years ago this didn't exist, where anyone who was on the radio, you weren't fighting with an influencer for your position. You were a broadcaster or a journalist, and you've done your work and you had your life. Whereas an influencer with big numbers now could easily get on the radio, but there's a difference between getting on the radio and staying. You stay
Mm-hmm.
when you're good and you put the work in. And
Absolutely.
that's what people kind of forget sometimes. I get that question an awful lot on my Instagram when I put up a question box, and they're like, oh, does it annoy you that people get in ahead of you because of their influencer status? And I'm like, no, it absolutely doesn't, because yes, they might get in on their numbers, but they're staying there because of their personality. And that's just something that I wish that I was savvier doing, was, I suppose, working on my Instagram. But that's something that I'm doing now. I the elusive swipe up link that you need
Yeah.
for, you needed a 10K followers, and I just put up on my Instagram the other day. I'm at like 8 now or something. It kind of fluctuates up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's something that I don't try to get too hung up on because it can drive you insane. But I know that I need to get to 10 followers so I can start 10 followers. I need to get to 10,000 so I can start working with brands, because I'll have the swipe up link. So I'm in contact with a lot of brands who like will send me stuff, but they can't do partnerships with me because I can't sell their product for them. I can't direct people onto a convenient swipe up. So I've just been very transparent with people on my Instagram, and I've said I'm going to do a fuck off giveaway. Like, it's
I
absolutely
see.
massive. Yeah, and it's huge. Like, it's worth over $1,000, and I'm giving it to one person. But I'm doing it on the basis of, I could have easily come on and said, like, times are really tough, everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to make sure that everybody's like looking after themselves, and here's a little gift for Christmas. But I wasn't. I was like, listen, you can by all means give this out to people for your Christmas presents. You can keep it all for yourself. You can enjoy it. I need to get to 10K followers. once I get to 10K followers, we can do more of this shit. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win. Like, I mean,
Incentive, yes.
yeah, I get more stuff, you get more stuff. It's like, it is a thing, but I'm doing it for the basis of I need to focus on the social side of things to make sure that my radio side of things can stay progressing, and that it doesn't halt because my numbers are too low. That's it. So yeah, a very long-winded answer to your question. That's what I hope I worked on.
No, absolutely. And I think, no, what you're doing is amazing. And I think just how transparent you are, I think that is just so key. And I think people love you for that. So keep doing what you're doing, girl. Another thing, one more question I want to ask just before we wrap up here. So if you can take in a few years' time, you've kind of done everything that you wanted to do and you've kind of achieved everything and you're set, what is the one thing that you would feel most proud to look back on?
Oh my God. So let's say that I've done, like, let's pop 10 years down the line and I've achieved everything that was on my list now of getting a show and having a good time. I actually maybe think that if I can do it the way I'm doing it, it will be the process and it will be the honesty that was going into it. And I think that's what I will be most proud to look back on, is that I didn't lose myself throughout it, that I didn't change who I am for anyone, that I was unapologetically myself. And I feel like I'm saying that an awful lot these days, but it's something that I am very proud of. And it's something that I think, especially in a world of social and a world of trying to pretend to be something that you're not all of the time, it's hard to remember who you are. So if, fingers crossed, that's where I get, and this is how I get there doing it, then that's definitely what I'll be most proud of.
Laura, you're on the track. You are an inspiration. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
I love your face. I love you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lee.